I'm here to talk about the Section 230 Sunset Act. If you don't know and you're watching, Section 230, what it does is basically says that a platform on the internet can't be held liable for the content that it hosts, which I realize sounds sort of technical and boring. So why did I come out here to Washington, D.C. to support this? Well, first and foremost, it's because I'm a dad, as the senator said. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And a lot of people here today are parents whose kids, I just heard a couple stories that left me trying to keep myself together. These photos remind me of my kids. And the harm that was done to these kids online might have been prevented if certain big tech companies knew that they could be sued. But under Section 230, they cannot be.
This is a terrible idea. I hope that by now we are all on the same page that when they trot out a handsome celebrity and cry about saving the children, we all know that alarm bells should be going off, right? Yes, there are bad things to the internet. Yes, there are bad things to big tech, but repealing or sunsetting Section 230 isn't going to fix that. Let me explain why. So as our handsome celebrity explained, well, barely. What Section 230 does is shield tech companies from civil liability. Basically, it means that they cannot be sued for the content that users generate on their platform. That's another red flag, by the way. The fact that he just kind of brushes over what it actually means and then dives right into the emotional storytelling. Because what Section 230 doesn't protect tech companies from is criminal liability, especially not federal criminal liability. And in fact, there are specific carve-outs in Section 230 for things like IP and trafficking. And if the solution they were proposing was to add more carve-outs to 230 or make certain adjustments to it, that might be a solution. However, the last carve-out they added actually didn't go the way they'd hoped, but simply repealing 230 would be catastrophic and in fact wouldn't actually stop the things that they're claiming they want to stop in the first place. Because right now, Section 230 doesn't just make sure that tech companies aren't held civilly liable for what users generate on their platforms. And this applies to all types of content, by the way, not just videos and photos, but comments, reviews, articles, anything written, any recommendations of other websites, etc. Part of the way it does that is by saying that if a website or tech company attempts to moderate the content on its platform, it cannot be held liable the way a publisher might that chooses to publish a certain article versus not, etc. In other words, the fact that they moderate one thing or provide tools to moderate doesn't mean that they're liable for not moderating another thing. So ironically, Section 230 would result in the loss of things like parental tools, because companies that give you the tools to filter out certain types of content would suddenly be made liable for any and all content that you might access using their service. Repealing Section 230 would likely result in one of two major things. Number one, websites and internet service providers would actually cease to moderate and remove access to tools allowing any sort of moderation or filtration, even of the most basic kind, like a forum for a specific hobby limiting the topic to that hobby. Yes, including parental controls, which would also likely result in a bunch of sites and apps allowing an absolute free-for-all of all types of dangerous and hateful content because their choice to moderate any of it would again open them up to that same liability. So not only not stopping that sort of content, but actually in many cases making it far more rampant and accessible. Or option two, it will result in providers clamping all the way down. Not based, mind you, on real harm, but on legal liability, which sounds like it might be the same thing, but isn't. In other words, it would be based on what is most likely to get them sued. Yeah, so there would be several major effects of that. Firstly, a lot of sites wouldn't be able to allow user-generated content at all because they wouldn't be able to afford the type of moderation that that would require. For many, many services, this would become far too cumbersome and expensive, and they would just have to shut it down entirely. Further concentrating user-generated content and communities and discourse into the hands of the entities that could actually afford that level of extreme moderation and who wouldn't be as afraid of being sued. It would result in the filtering of subjects that aren't exactly harmful but pose risk to the platform or platform's owners. So if there's an individual or company with a lot of extra resources that doesn't exactly want people to say negative things about them on the internet, well, a service provider might err on the side of not upsetting the people with the deep pockets. Now, this could apply to billionaires that don't exactly want people talking about all the bad things they're up to, as well as corporations that maybe just don't like negative reviews for their products or movies. Meanwhile, without Section 230, if someone else is defaming you online, well, you better hope that your pockets are deep enough for you to pose an actual inconvenience to the providers. Otherwise, they could be sued by the person with the deeper pockets who wants to say whatever they want to say on the platform. This is literally what Trump tried to do when he sued Twitter and Jack Dorsey for banning him. He asked the judge to rule that Section 230 was unconstitutional. That's the kind of person that doesn't like Section 230. Oh, and if that's not bad enough, conservatives and the Heritage Foundation are super big fans of repealing or narrowing Section 230. It's all over Project 2025. Essentially, repealing or sundowning Section 230 will result in every space on the internet that has any sort of user-generated content being an absolute free-for-all with zero moderation, zero rules, zero content filtering for anything harmful, hateful, inappropriate, or even just off-topic. Or a space that is so heavily moderated so as to ensure that absolutely zero generated content, comments, etc. could upset anyone that might have the resources or propensity to sue. And it'll boil down to giving the money even more control over our ability to communicate with each other on the internet. Don't fall for it.